Let's hope she's a big fish.
That is dancing up the river.
That's called choking it right. California Delta, getting it done. Hey, what's up guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman here, and today we're back out here with Andy Cooch Cuccia from CoochesFishing.com. Andy's an awesome guide out here on the California Delta. He was out here cracking stripers and some bass with us too back in the fall, but now we're out here and Andy's gonna hopefully put us on some bass today. What time of year are we fishing, Andy? Explain to them what we're doing here, because a lot of people, they associate bass with summer, fall, spawn, pre-spawn, you name it, but we're kind of in one of those periods, aren't we?
Yeah, we're what I call the transition period, Nick. You know, we're coming out of winter. It's February. And even though we've had these nice bluebird sky days, warming 70-degree water temps or air temperature, you know, these bass on this river, these are Florida strain bass. They're in a shallow water impoundment. They don't have a lot of deep places to go, and they bury themselves out on ledges and then move up into the grass. And what we have is we have these fish that are coming out of their deep winter haunts that are transitioning out of winter and into the pre-spawn mode. And what happens is, and if you've been out here on the river the last week or so, you'd have seen 30, 40 boats in all the flooded ponds, and everybody's up inside the tules looking for spawning fish. Guys, it's only 57 to 58 degrees. It's February, eggs haven't matured. You know, these fish are transitioning. They're up there gorging. They haven't eaten. There's been a lot of shad that have moved in. The crawdads are starting to come out. You're finding bass with red teeth and jaws, and they're up in there rooting, and they're just gorging because they haven't eaten. The eggs aren't mature yet. It's still, you know, it's going to take 15 to 20 days, you know, above 58. Stabilizing.
That's to get those eggs to mature.
Get the eggs to mature and incubate. It's an incubation
even
process.
though that water temperature is close to 60 degrees, it just hasn't been there long enough for these bass to actually go into a pre-spawn mode.
Right, and
so
certainly
we're pre to the pre-spawn, correct?
Well, yeah, well, it's winter transition.
It's a winter
they are now moving out of their winter patterns in towards their pre-spawn.
They're thinking spring.
They're thinking spring, definitely. The water temperatures come up from 44, 45 where it was all December and January, and you know, we are getting into some areas where, you know, water temperatures as high as 60 degrees in some places. But for the most part, it's around 54 to 56, depending on where you're at. The largest concentration of fish are hanging in that 6 to 10 foot zone. And that's really the zone you need to target for those good ones. You can get up shallow, you'll find a lot of bucks in there being all crazy and having fun and eating.
That'd be fun too.
We can get on those too.
You guys can see we're right here at the head of a front. It's raining on us. We're targeting the prefrontal because we were hoping to get some bigger fish on film for you guys. But now that it's raining, we might have to shut the camera on and off. But Andy and I are going to put the fish in the box, break down the techniques whenever we find covered areas, and fire the camera back up to capture those fish catches for you guys. So hop on board with us, get out here and smash them. Andy, always a pleasure, brother.
We couldn't have asked for a better day, man. The leading day of a storm. This is a jig fishing day, guys. Stick with us.
Let's go get them. Little bass, little jerkbait bass. Keeper's a keeper though.
Hey, fishing's fishing, right?
Got that right.
As long as we're catching them, it's all good.
Seen that big yellowbird jerkbait? Absolutely love this thing. You guys can get it at yellowbirdproducts.com. Check these bad boys out, they're amazing.
Yeah, you know, most of the jerkbaits that we fish out here, most guys anyhow, you know, the shorter 3, 4, 4.5 inch jerkbaits. We don't really understand how well bass eat longer, slender baits and
better bass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not just better bass. You could see how that. I mean, that wasn't.
Yeah,
I mean, a giant bass by any shape. That's just a little 1.5-pounder. He smoked that thing.
He did. He absolutely crushed it.
Because that's a bait, that's a forage, that long, slender thing. And you know, I learned that from Professor Doug Hanna way back in the day in the 80s.
Good old Doug.
Doug, he taught me a lot about bass preferences and forage and whatnot. And that whole long, slender jerkbait thing, man, That's
Yeah, it's incredible.
thing.
You know,
I'm
a lot of guys have the confidence in these much smaller baits because you're getting a ton of bites.
You're getting a lot of fish, yeah.
But you look at that, and ever since I started throwing this bigger one like this, I got all the confidence in the world that I can still catch a 5 or 6 on this fish. I was out prototyping it. I had this 8 or 9 pounder just come up and just start swirling at the thing, and she never got it, so I went home crying. But you win some, you lose some. But man, the big fish do key in on these bigger jerk baits, and I think they're truly underutilized still. Take them. Oh yeah!
That's a wintertime jig fish.
Jig fish in the California Delta, baby. Transition times.
Nice big solid 4.5 pounder.
Ooh,
Look at that. See there?
Dang, oh yeah.
You guys get a good shot of look at this. You can see one of the reasons why this time of year we throw that jig out here with that crawdad pattern. When those fish's jaws and the inside of their teeth start getting red like that, they're down there rooting in them rocks, digging out crawdads, and that's what these fish are doing right up here. They're moving out of the deeper grass, they're moving up into the rocks in the base of the tules, and they don't have hands. The only thing they've got to be able to move those rocks around and get those crawdads is they use their mouth. And when you see that red, you know those fish are using their mouths to root them crawdads, and that's where that jigging pig is really effective. Nice fish. Just absolutely crushed it. Now you saw how that one went. That's a typical winter fish. Not a big one, that's a good fish. That fish, boy, when he bit, that fish bit up there and was underneath the boat within half a second. That's a winter transition fish.
Explain why that fish is doing that. I know why, but explain to our viewers why that fish shot under the boat.
What it is, you can see, is, I mean, these fish, they're not fat and porker like they get in the wintertime. Their eggs aren't mature, so they've been sitting out in this deep water. Behind us here in this slough, we've got 12, 14 foot out, and we got a ledge that comes up that's full of grass, and then a grass flat leads up to these rocks and tules. And all this fish is doing, these fish have made the winter transition from out in the middle of the slough, suspended and buried in the grass, and they've moved to the edge of the break where it drops off instead of out roaming in the middle. And then what they do when the tide comes up and the afternoon rolls, they'll move up onto these rocks and start rooting to feed. They get a mouthful of food and back out they go.
So as soon as they grab that food, back out immediately.
They're going right straight back out to deep water.
So when you made that pitch, grabbed it and decided to head home, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, he grabbed his mouthful of crawdad and went right back out to deep water.
Yeah, he made that pitch in there, and all of a sudden you seen his line just whoop, going straight under the boat, wham, and you see that fish coming straight up. As he took that food, he was immediately going back to shelter.
Now this one, of course, this is probably a fish that's really, you know, an initial winter mover. That it's just because he hasn't been up feeding a lot. That was his first trip to the rocks looking for a crawdad.
You don't see that crawfish.
Yeah, no. Mouth. That fish hadn't been up there feeding at all.
Okay, so now we've got turned around and we're actually working back through that same stretch. A lot of the time in the winter, those fish are going to still school up. They're really not going to start breaking apart from those schools until the pre-spawn phase is when they really start breaking apart at that point, right?
Yeah, when they get up there and want to start, you know, picking their own bedrooms, they don't want to be sharing the bedroom.
Right.
Until then, they're locked in their little colony in groups.
So, instead of just keep burning down to the bank, we're going to move back through there and see if we can find more active fish still stacked up. A lot of the time you can go through there, present multiple times, pull quite a few fish. Instead of just moving on with that one, when realistically you should have turned back around and reworked it, or a couple times, or even switch up baits and try it again, because there might be a different fish in there looking to key in on a different bait than what you showed them the first time.
Hang with us, guys. We'll be right back. Attention Northern California anglers. Have you been to Boat Country in Escalon? With one of the largest selections of welded aluminum fishing boats from Weldcraft, Lowe, and Hughescraft, chances are they've got the right fishing boat for you. And did I mention they have a full service center to take care of all your boating repair and maintenance needs? If you're a boat owner or just looking to become one, you owe it to yourself to check these guys out. Visit BoatCountryUSA.com or stop on by. I'll see you there. Did you know that P-Line makes specialized lines for all your fishing needs, from the super strong abrasive resistant CXX or the low stretch super stealthy CX Premium? Or maybe you're looking for invisibility or super bite detection with P-Line's 100% fluorocarbon. No matter what your needs, P-Line's got it covered. To find out more, visit P-Line.com.
P-Line, baby.
Ever tried pulling a planer board next to your boat when trolling or fishing from a swift current bank? If not, you're missing out on one of the most phenomenal fish catching machines on the market today. With Yellowbird planer boards pulling your lines perpendicular to your boat, you can't help but catch more fish. Find out more by visiting www.yellowbirdproducts.com. Have you been to rustylures.com? Did you know they offer free shipping on anything over $29.99? And with all the latest and greatest in bass fishing gear, from punching tackle, umbrella rigs, swim baits, and you name it, there's really no reason for you not to be getting the best deal online today. So go to www.rustylures.com. Did you ever wish for an RC boat when you were a kid? And do you have a passion for fishing? Well, guess what? It's time to do them both at the same time. With RCFishingWorld.com's RC Fishing Pole, it's time to be a kid again. So visit www.rcfishingworld.com today. Did you know that Bass Angler Magazine has more articles than any other bass fishing publication? And with the top pros from around the nation spilling the beans in every issue, there's really no reason for you not to be subscribed to the most informative bass fishing magazine there is, Bass Angler Magazine. Thanks for watching. Now let's get back to the show.
So we finally popped another one. It's on that brown and olive.
But you can see he's feeding up pretty good. I mean, it's just a little guy, but he's just up there feeding. Starting to get a little red up inside.
All of 12 inches.
All of a pound and 3/4. He's a
That's
little
not
porker.
bad.
No,
That's
he's
not
a
bad.
little porker.
Keeper's a keeper.
He hit it like he was a 6-pounder, though, I tell you.
Delta bass is a Delta bass.
You know, I think that brown and olive is probably a little better than that black. And we probably ought to get you going on.
3 fish in front of me. I got some short strikes on the black and blue, but now I'm switching over to that brown and olive pattern.
Go to the brown and olive pattern.
That's a TNT jig,
That's
right?
a TNT water jig. That's a jig I designed for Troy's.
And we're throwing in the 1/2 ounce? Throwing
it in 1/2 ounce. We got the little rattle on there. You know, I don't know how much that rattle's helping right now, but this is the time of year where I always throw a rattle on my jig. A little single rattle.
Sometimes when the bite gets tough, it's just best to shake it.
Yeah, and it works. That rattle works real well, especially when you get in the stained water.
Yeah,
You get in that stained water and you can sit there and shake that.
Clear
jig.
water, not so much.
Yeah, sometimes the sound, penetrates further out into clear water, and maybe it could be more obnoxious and
get them to come over and find
because with these fish just moving up, they're in there roaming in these shallow flats, and they hear this clickety clack clack clack. It could spook them as much as it could draw them in.
It's best to go with like a mambo rhythm, you would say?
Yeah, I kind of do a full and sink and pop and hop and pop. That's what
the hop and pop. It's the hop.
It's the hop
and the pop. The hop and the pop.
It's that Cooch's claw wave thing.
Cooch's claw wave.
Where you get that jig, where you get that jig to go up, and that claw waves up. And that claw wave. The jig's not coming down the bank this way. It's hopping straight up and rolling and waving.
Nice.
And that's what I'm trying to do. You see, when I'm giving it all that rod tip action, I'm getting it down on the bottom, and I'm just giving it little slight pops, so it comes up and rolls over.
Well, let me rig back up and try some hop and pop.
Yeah,
and try the Cooch's hop and pop.
We're gonna get you out of brown water. I got one. I had it out there in the beginning. You wanted that black.
There it is, right here.
So I mean, it was good and you got to do that when you're out on certain times of the year, especially this time of year. We had such a great black jig bite, in December and January, and then it's kind of changed to the brown, and then you get days where they might want one or the other. So when you're starting out and you get 2 of us, it's always good.
That's why it's way better than mine.
It's always good for one guy to have one color and one guy to have not another one. And now that we're starting to catch a little more fish than earlier, it's clear they're wanting the brown more than the black.
All right, let's go get them.
Let's go get them. Yeah, all the little subtle things that happen when you're out jig fishing, you really got to kind of pay attention to some of that. And certainly making color changes can be, critical changes that you can make that will turn your fish catching right around. I don't think changing the weight a whole bunch this time of year makes a lot of difference, but certainly changing and flip-flopping from black to browns makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
I can remember back in the day, Steve Sapp, when he was doing all of his damage, fishing the jigs, and he would talk about There's one.
Oh!
Little guy. That's a little guy. He would talk about, you know, I started out throwing the black and blue jig, and then the sun came out and I switched to black and red, and I caught all my big fish on that black and red. And you know, that's making that little subtle change sometimes.
It's amazing.
Is the difference between catching them and not.
I know a lot of guys are thinking, oh, one bold color versus another bold color, and they try it, but realistically, subtle color changes can make a huge difference.
Yeah, big difference.
So try it.
I typically don't do drastic color changes. I like making subtle little color changes, especially if I've been catching something on a specific color pattern.
Right.
Stick to that basic color pattern, but just make a subtle change in whether it's your trailer or, you know, if you're throwing brown, go to green pumpkin jig.
So they might hone in on it a little bit better.
They might hone in on it.
You'd be able to do the math at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-oh. This is the one we wanted.
That's the one.
The one we wanted.
Dig it, let me get my
This was one of those.
water.
This was one of those little tug fights way out in the grass. I don't know how big it is, but it certainly is. It's bigger than the one I just caught. It's probably about a 3-4 pounder. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice fish.
Nice. Oh yeah. I'd say that goes 5 right there.
No,
Right around it.
I'll give it. That's about like
I'll
that
go 4
other one.
3/4.
That's about 4. Well, you know what? We don't mess around. We don't mess around. We grab the infamous Cuccia scales. For all of you who haven't ever heard of Cuccia scales,
This weighs things under by a quarter of a
it's a
pound.
certified digital scale. It's the Berkeley Boca. All right, we power it on. This thing, you know,
keep
is
working.
solid as a rock. Well, we don't guess fish anymore. We just put them on there, and we go. Look at that.
Oh, look who's right. Look, oh, 513.
513. Now this fish, that fish has been in there feeding.
Yeah, she has.
She's not full of eggs. She's been feeding. And she's been on the crawdad. She's all red up and down.
So right after Cooch stuck that last biggin, I ended up hooking into a good one myself, but we couldn't get the camera out in time and the fish ended up spitting the jig at the side of the boat. But oh well, you win some, you lose some. I still got to hook a good one. So we made a run over to Little Frank's, but we were met head on by the storm. So we thought it was in our best interest to pull up, you know, get out of there and come back and shoot another day for you guys. So that's exactly what we're doing now.
That's ironic.
I heard there was a fishing trip out here today. Backside of winter transition. You know, we're here to do it. We're gonna go out and get us some fish today.
Let's go get them, man. Let's go get them. Little swim bait fish start the morning off?
Tail fish, yep.
Yeah, not bad.
Little transition bucks, little fat belly. You know, that's one of those
He's been
2 pounders that's about 2 3/4,
Yeah.
you know.
Be a 2 in the middle of the summer. This time of year is about 2 3/4.
You know what we're doing right now, you'll catch a lot of fish doing this. We've got, you know, you've got the main river channel out here. We're out on the outside of Frank's Track. You got all these deep water fish that are wanting to come out of this deep channel and start moving up shallow, and they're getting on the outside of these Thule Islands with a little deep drop and little pockets where the current goes through, because eventually they're going to all migrate in to the shallow flats to spawn. So they're coming that way, and what we're doing here is we're sitting at the entrance point to where they come in. It's just like this weekend with Mr. Howell down there at Gunnersville. You know, he sat out in front of that pond on that rock pile where those fish were all migrating in. They do the same thing here. There's the same Florida bass. You find these areas that lead into the spawning ground, and you can sit out here and just wait for them to move up, wait for them to move up.
So we got the deep water here, our shallow water here, and this is one of those ledges. This is right where this little Thule Island, this little Thule berm out in front of here. This is one of those areas that they're going to migrate across.
They're going to migrate right up, and the nice thing about this is this time of year, with them transitioning, a lot of those fish are sitting down there in 7 to 11 foot. And then what they can do is they just come up vertically to feed. They only have to move 6 foot to come from 11 to be shallow and 4, and then they just drop right down, versus making a long 25, 30 yard across the big flat. But those are the kind of areas where you're going to find them out on the edge of the grass and the flat on some of those big.
So what Andy's saying right here is this is we're sitting in deep water, and this comes up. This is a steep bank right here to this Thule Island, and the flat's on the other side. So they have the comfort of coming up here, eating, and going right back down to their safety in just a very short distance. They don't have to travel a long ways. So that's what we're looking for this time of year. We're looking for those steeper banks with a flat near them, but they can come up, chew, and get back into safe water.
It's ideal too when you got a little bit of current.
A little bit of
not
current
a lot.
coming
If
on
it's rip snorting, you're not going to find them there because they're just not ready for that. But you get a little bit of current out on these points because they can get down below on those ledges in those deep pockets down there on
get
those
out of that
berms,
current.
and they can tuck up and just sit there and suspend and be completely out of the current.
Can't touch it.
Woo! Hammer time! Yeah! Hammer time! There we go.
What we're looking for, baby.
Nice largie right there. Clutch on that reel. Came up and ate it right there at the edge of the boat. Hammer time. Hammer time.
Right off that edge too.
There we go. Right off the edge of that grass. Came out there. Absolutely smoked it. We're throwing big hammer swim baits right now. Just with exposed jig head. When you're fishing the exposed jig head, a lot of the time if you're throwing, you know, a kill system and Texas rig hook, it's good around that real heavy stuff, but if you can get away with an exposed jig head, you should. Your hookup ratio is just a heck of a lot better. If they come up and just eat it from behind and you get that hook on them, they're gonna tell you that they got it instead of you missing a hook set opportunity. So when you can, exposed jig head, if you're getting real heavy, of course, go with that Texas rig style kill system hooks. I love those Trocars, by the way. So let's put this guy in the box and get some more big fish for you.
We've come around this same point where we were out on the main river channel. These fish are migrating down. We're on the back side of this island. Now, as you can see, as you look up through here, we've got a big shallow flat, whereas the other portion of this island had a straight drop off. This thing comes out 40 feet, and then it drops into 12, 13 foot of water.
So a much slower taper.
Yeah, so these fish are coming up and they're sitting right on the ledge out the outside of these sparse tules. And we're now throwing up looking for a shallow aggressive feeder and then really slowing it down as we come to get the outer edge and let that bait get down 5, 6, 7 foot. And we're actually picking off, as you could see on that screen, there was a bunch of suspended fish, and those are the fish that we're targeting now. Those are those neutral fish.
Just before that fish I just had, as I went to lift my bait out of the water, I got smoked, but I didn't see the fish. I was assuming it was a striper, but just clear indicator, I had 4 or 5 foot of line out right there, and that blackie came out and took it.
Right, and that
Right
was
there.
versus the one I caught around the other side that was up close, and we're probably getting bit by little fish up in here. But those better fish are out here deeper.
That's why we're throwing that swim bait right there too.
We're
These things excel with suspended fish.
Right, and it also gives us, you got to put yourself in a position where you get yourself the opportunity to throw up and catch that shallow aggressive feeder, but yet also be able to fish out and target those neutral and negative feeding fish. The shallow feeders are the easiest one in the world to catch. We all catch them. And I think a lot of guys on this river tend to stay too shallow all the time and they're both sitting on top of the neutral and negative fish. Give yourself the opportunity to fish for those aggressive ones as well as those ones that are out here that are neutral and negative. These ones out here are the better quality fish.
Clearly.
Unless he's a 10-pounder.
Let's hope she's a 10-pounder. What do we got? What you got there, Andy?
We got into a group, whatever it is. I think it's a striper, unless it's a 10-pounder. Yeah, it looks like it's got stripes.
It's got stripes on it.
Looks like it's got stripes. Well, that's not what we were after, but you know, these are sure a lot of fun this time of year, and we've been catching a boatload of these.
There you go. My neighbor's been wanting some tacos, so we'll box that day.
Yeah, you'll even catch those 3-4 pound stripers, 3.5 pounder maybe.
Nice one. Well, not too bad. Woohoo! Little 2-pounder. Looks like we may have stumbled onto him here. There we go.
How would they say in the classes? It's a big one, it's a big one, it's a big one, it's a big one.
Come on, baby, come on, baby.
Big one. The California Delta, swing them. Nice.
That's good. It's all good.
3-pounder.
I just got pegged over here.
Look how fat and chunky those fish are. You think they're getting ready to move up and
Oh yeah.
just
Look
gorgeous.
at the little guy though. Swim baiter. I think mine's at least 12 inches though.
Yours was bigger than mine.
Found a little wolf pack over here. Andy just flipped one on the jig. I just got that guy on the swim bait. Another little fish. Jig fish, anyway. Woo. There we go. Got my redemption for last time. Last time the jig bite was eluding me and Andy was getting them, and then I lost like a 5-6 pounder after it jumped up and spit my jig out. So I'll take this little guy as a fair redemption now that we got that guy out of the way. Let's go get a big one.
He's over the gun, holy cows! Oh, I decided to set the hook again, and I pulled it right out of his mouth.
Oh,
That's a 5-pounder.
I seen it. It was a big one. That's a jig fish. Oh,
Dandy.
oh, that is a damn.
That's enough, don't reel anymore. Swing! Ah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
baby!
That's what we came out for, boys.
Grass fish too, huh?
TNT water jig, developed by Andy Cuccia, standing right here next to him.
Little jig and pig.
Look, it matches him. Look, it matches.
Little
Looks
jig
just
and
like the guy.
pig. Man, look at that fish. He's
Woo!
been down in the grass. He's got all that green and black and nice coloration on him.
Just slow dragging it over this flat. Sure enough, all of a sudden just felt like grass was on there, but that grass started moving the opposite direction I was pulling. That's a good 5.5.
Yes, sir. Pretty fish. And you can see, again, the red around the mouth. She's a crawdad eater.
Yep,
She's been out
crawfish
there
eater.
chomping craws. All right, what we're using out here today is a custom Arky head flipping jig. It's a jig I helped design for TNT baits. It's got my name attached to it, Cooch's TNT wada jig. This one we're using today, I'm using a 1/2 ounce. It's got a number 4/0 Mustad ultra point hook, and we use a 20 strand weed, or a 40 stranded weed guard. Most jig manufacturers will use a 20 strand. Each of the individual strands are a lot thicker, but the diameter of the 20 and the diameter of the 40 is the same. So with the 40, you're getting a lot more limber weed guard. We have it out extended a little further, which helps create a bit of a lock when you get those good fish hooked on. Right now, this time of year in the winter, whenever it's cold and we got dirty water, I like putting a rattle on my jig. I like to give it that little extra sound and vibration down there. It really helps to trigger bites, especially if they're not eating that jig on the fall. When they're eating it on the fall, there's no need to have a rattle because it doesn't do you any good. But once that jig hits the bottom and you're trying to pop those neutral and negative fish, that extra clicking sound will help draw that fish to that bait. So I use a Northland rattle. They come in clear and black. They come in single and double. This one just happens to be a double cylinder rattle. The black ones tend to have a little more tinnier sound. The clear ones tend to have a little duller sound. So sometimes you can play around with that and it'll make a difference. The next thing I do, because we're using pork, I'm using a pork trailer at this time of year. Whenever that water temperature is below 62 degrees, I'm going to be using pork, and it doesn't matter where I'm fishing in the country for largemouth bass. So with that in mind, I'm using a little spacer. It's just a Yamamoto grub. This one's got purple, red, and blue flake in it. And I slide it right straight up the center of the hook and push it all the way up against that rattle. That does a couple of things. First and foremost, it adds a little body and bulk to the bait, so that now I'm going to get a slightly slower fall. It also, if you've ever seen a crawdad, its underbelly is always a lot lighter than the rest of its body, top and bottom. The other thing that it does when I put that pork on there, it's going to help keep that pork out on the bend of the jig. This way your pork doesn't get twisted around and caught up on a hook, which is going to prevent you from catching fish. It's always important when you put that pork on there, you notice it's got a little fatty part on it that's got a slot up inside. It's important to always put it through that fatty piece first and then pull it through. That way you get that nice flappy back piece due to that slot that's always in the back here that helps that jig, that gives you that extra action of those legs. But that's basically what we call a jigging pig. Whenever we're out winter fishing, we like using that archy head, especially pitching and flipping around the woods and the rocks. And we always use that pork in the winter time. Now when you get into other times of year and it warms up, you can go to plastic trailers and so forth, but you can get your Uncle Josh super pork. You know, it works extremely well. I'm actually using a bow hog, which no longer makes. Strike King got out of the pork business, but I have a bunch of extra jars left. I like it because it's a little less fattier. When it dries out, the pork doesn't shrink. The problem with Uncle Josh pork is that it's a real fatty piece of the pig. So when it dries out, it shrinks and shrivels, your pork is gone. So you always got to remember when you're fishing with pork, when you happen to put the rod down, have a little soaky pad you can put it in, or drape it over the side of the boat to keep that pork wet and protected.
Yeah.
Woo! That's the one. Let's get into the right spot.
I seen this girl. Look at that. That's called choking it right there, folks. Choking it. I seen her flash out on that swim bait. Boom! There we go. Nothing huge, but let me swing this guy up here. Oh, look at that. Barely even have the hooks in them. Well, nothing huge, but you know, we're rounding off to the end of the day here. For the most part, all day it was the Big Hammer swim bait performing. Let me get this guy back in the water and.
Nice little keeper there.
Yeah, the half-ounce wada jig with the pork trailer on there. Andy, once again, man, it was an absolute blast. Andy's going to stick another one right now.
It's been a blast,
yeah,
buddy. You know, the thing about this winter fishing out here is you just got to keep at it. Some days you get them really good when the weather's ugly and it's windy and it's blowing, and you know, other days out here it's a grind, guys, and you got to just keep at it. Hope that our little demonstration on fishing that jig in some of the areas that we fished it and chucking and whining these paddle tail swim baits put a few more fish in your boat for you.
Hey, it was tough, but we still got some good fish. You know, the elements didn't want to participate the first day, but the second day we got out here, elements were a little bit better, but the bite got even tougher. But we did get some big bites. Andy, I appreciate it as always, brother. It's an absolute blast to fish with you.
Anytime.
I can fish with this guy 30 days in a row and I'll still be out here laughing my butt off. That's the type of guy Andy is. Make sure you guys book this dude if you want to go out on the Delta, have some fun. The number's right here at the bottom. Call up Andy. I guarantee you we'll have nothing but good time. This is a tough day, and look at the big ones we're putting in the boat.
You know, we put a lot of nice 4 to 5 pound fish in the boat today. You betcha. We go out there and we grind it out, and that's what we shoot for. You want to go out and get a bunch of just a whole bunch of numbers? Then, you know, let me know. We will tailor a guide trip to fit your needs. You want to go out and understand how to catch these big fish on this river, we can tailor your day to do just that.
He's out here with me. I said, no, big ones, man.
Big bites, big bites. So we've been searching big bites for the last 2 days.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys watching, man. Hit me up on Facebook, informativefisherman@gmail, or call the number if you need any questions answered. You can ask me, you can ask the people I'm out with, and I will get the questions answered for you guys. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Keep a tight line.
Here we go, baby. California Delta. Getting it done.
Potbelly winter fish.
That one, once again, tells us maybe we need to slow down.
I yo-yoed him up and down.